Big fluff.
Hello, world. It's Stephanie Cmar, and I am here to tell you that I know some shit.
Exotica. Hello, everyone. I'm Joel Murphy.
And I'm Stephanie Cmar.
And this is Stephanie Knows Some Shit,
where I spend some time talking about the things that I think I know about. And hopefully you believe me.
What are we going to be talking about this week?
So today, and this is a topic that I'm actually incredibly comfortable with, we're going to talk about throwing a party, which is 50% of my job is being the food service and cleanup side of the party you may throw.
Yeah, you do a lot of catering, like a lot of, you provide food for parties. That's a big, yeah.
I do. And it's so fun. And I get emails daily, which is why for anybody who ever emails me, I have an automatic response that goes out that says I may not reply to your email for 3 to 7 days because, Joel, I can't speak for all the chefs in the world, but we are not emailers.
Yes.
And also, I'm just constantly responding with the same things every time. So this episode is all about, what I do, what it takes, what the ins and outs are, what the guest needs to provide. I personally, and we were talking before we started filming, I do not throw parties. The last time I threw a party, I got into the rosé a little bit too early and went to bed in the middle of it. Like during the day, it was an afternoon party. It started at noon. And from that experience, I kind of learned what not to do.
Yeah, I think I always had that too, that even in high school, when like my parents would be out of town, I would want someone else to throw a party because I have this where about halfway through a party, I'm done and I would like to go home.
I'm done.
And if it's in your home, then you can't leave. And I think that's the problem, is that I never wanted to be. And I'm sure like everyone's like this. My friends are always like that. And I would be guilty of this myself, of like you crash at the party, you're hanging out the next day. Then it's just, oh, let's get some food, and then it's just the party extends to the next day. Like, and it's just, no, at some point I want to be home in pajamas without other people around. And so that's why I don't throw parties.
Yeah, it's too much. I love another person's party. Like, love. That's
the thing. The people. So that's really, I think, where we should start is the people who throw the parties. Thank you. The rest of us, like us introverts with a very limited amount of bandwidth for your party, very much appreciate your willingness to throw the party.
Yeah. So party throwing from a host standpoint is not my jam. I just wasn't built for it necessarily. I don't know. My parents didn't have parties growing up, so I never learned that. But nothing makes me happier than coming into somebody else's house, not knowing where anything is, figuring it out in about 30 seconds and just like crushing it. So I thought that it would be super fun to talk about like the first email to the actual execution and like how many styles there are. So I get a ton of emails. I was saying I've got an automatic away message because I just don't respond to them in a timely manner. And it became so rude that I was like, it's not you, it's me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I delete all the unimportant emails. And then I'm like, okay, I should probably that took 20 seconds. So now I can take another 30 seconds to respond. Nope, doesn't work that way. But the first emails that I always get are like, I'm thinking about hosting an event on April 25th. Are you available? Well, yes, I am. Thank you for asking.
Right.
How many people are you thinking about? So I get the number of people. There's always a question about price. And I am going to say this like very bluntly. It's expensive.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you are you're a well-known chef that is accomplished. Like someone wants to have you come into their home and make food for them. Yeah. Like I get that's going to be expensive.
It's not a cheap thing. And I think people are sometimes, it's not like The way I charge is per person plus groceries. And if somebody is like, I can't afford that, and I've gotten really good vibes from their emails, I am always happy to figure out a way to do it, because my love is cooking. It's not actually the making money. It's the love of cooking and throwing this event and like, whatever. But it's not a cheap process, because what people don't realize is that, number one, I always have David with me. And that's not just because we do everything together. It's because even for 4 people, from my regard, there's a certain amount of entertaining that I also do, talking and serving and cleaning. All of that takes a lot of space and energy. So, and we split the cost. Like, we might be married, but that he needs money, I need money.
Right.
So cover his cost. And then there's the menus, there's the grocery shopping, there's the prep time. And for every event that we do, we want it to be cool for not only the guests, but cool for us. So we're always inspired. So we're going to go above and beyond. We don't repeat anything unless it's a dessert, which is like, because once you find a good dessert, it's like, don't mess that up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Don't
tread away.
Is there a range of, like a spectrum for an event between like, I don't know, I'm like pigs in a blanket to like fine dining, like, is there kind of a range that you operate within between like finger food, Super Bowl party versus like fancy, sit down?
Absolutely. And the thing is that you couldn't ask me which is my favorite of the two. But for example, this past weekend, we had a formal sit down 4-course dinner plus hors d'oeuvres on Saturday. And then we had a finger food. I kind of described it as like stoner food, because it was that food. We just needed to get food into people's bellies so they could keep up with the party. And both were like insanely fun, but very different. One was very refined. And even though these guests are so laid back, this was a dinner party, like tablecloths and everything. And the other party, there was confetti everywhere. So there is definitely a range. And my thought about it is like, because this is what I love to do, I'm happy to do any and all of it all the time. So we've done everything from like an Oscar party, for example. We have done progressive dinners where people just come in for one course, but it's so fancy that I hire servers. I always read the room. Like, what are we trying to accomplish? There are just certain levels of people who have different expectations. And my goal as a private chef and caterer is to hit them every time. Because David and I always joke, and people think it's a joke, but it's not. When you throw that party on a Saturday night, that is David and my social experience as well. Like, for a long time, I was saying yes to events where I got like bad vibes from, where I was like, this isn't going to be fun. This is going to be so poo-poo. And now, fortunately, we're successful. So I'm able to be like, I would love to do that, or I wouldn't love to do that. And we joke, but it's how many exclamation points do you use in that intro email? Are you enthusiastic about this idea?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So if you write, I want a 4-course meal, period, that's a bad sign.
I'm kind of like, no. Or if it's like, I'm trying to think of the ones where it's just so formal. Like my in-laws are coming in for 3 weeks and we need dinner, period. There's just something where you're just like, oh, this sounds like not that much fun. And it means so much to me to be able to cook for people, which I know sounds cheesy. And you're like, oh, Steph, shut up. But like, I love it. Like, truly, genuinely, like, this is my jam. This is like, I get so much joy from it. That I'm just careful, because you have those bad meals, and we've only had a few, but you leave and you're just like, well, I don't feel good about any of that now. And that's just not what I want, especially David and I, our company isn't even, I guess we have an LLC now, but it's still grassroots, just us.
Yeah. So it really is, it's literally just the two of you. Like you said, sometimes you hire servers, but otherwise it's just the two of you.
It's just us.
Yeah.
And what we do, so just to give so you can have an idea what will happen if you ever hire a caterer that's not from a bigger company. I always say we prep, we cook, we serve, we clean. And our whole thing is we want you to come back into your kitchen after dinner and be like, whoa, not only did we eat fantastically, but there's not a crumb of food on the floor. We just take so much pride in it because, again, we're not cheap and we're not lazy. So we want to make sure that the meal is phenomenal. And when we plan our menus, I get a lot of questions like, do you have a sample menu you can send me so I can get an idea? And I'm always right back. I'm like, I can so happily send you the last 2 menus I've done, but no menu looks the same. I want to know what you love to eat. I want to know what you hate to eat. Are you allergic to something? Do you have some nostalgic response to this pasta dish? And I'm smiling right now. Nobody can see this because it's a podcast.
I can see. So
yeah, my goal is for this to be a meal that in a couple years you'll be like, that was really fun and really low stress. Really low stress.
I can tell you, my wife and I, when we got married, it was a very small, we got married in a backyard of her cousin. It was a very small ceremony. There were not that many people there. But the thing that people still talk about to this day is the food. People remember how, I mean, in our wedding, I made it sound like they're very happy that we're married, but
yeah, but that was a given.
But of the actual ceremony, the actual day, that was the biggest thing is everybody liked the food. They talked about it. People remember food. The food is a big part of celebrating things.
Food is sort of that bridge between anyone. Even if you're a non-eater, not a non-eater, but let's say food's not important to you. You eat to survive and whatnot. Sometimes the simplest meals that, somebody just prepared because that's what you like is your heart's warm. So that's sort of how we do it. And I don't know about anybody else's companies. I don't follow them because I get very confused. But even for my private chef job, there's very little. I cook 18 meals for 3 different families because, Marilyn can't do nuts or dairy. Tom and Alex eat everything. Beth does not like most vegetables and most proteins. She likes yogurt and granola. But I still cook for her and love her unconditionally. But I try to really personalize it because this is my job, but it's also my life. It's it's my thing. So when we write menus, and typically the way David and I have strengths, butchery, meats, and certain vegetables, David's thing. Pasta, dessert, salads, not to brag, but we don't know what it is and we don't know when the tides turn, but I make a fucking mean salad. A wildly delicious. You're not even oh, I'm eating rabbit food. You're wow, so much care was put into this salad.
And again, it's not a standard. It's
not a standard.
In general, you're just good at salads regardless of whatever's thrown at you.
Because I think so hard. Because I'm nobody wants that flat ass, textureless salad. No, I put a ton of thought into it. So we do split up and divide and conquer.
We should do a salad episode, by the way. That'd be a good future episode of the podcast.
People always ask.
Yeah.
I swear I used to have these clients who I sadly don't work for anymore, but it wasn't a sad departure. It was just timing and traveling and whatnot. But I'm pretty sure other than like the two things I would make them for two dinners, I think it was the salads I made every day. Like that was the jam. I just love a busy salad.
Yeah. I like that.
You know?
Yeah.
So our menus are all very much like tailored to whatever. And then I go another step where it's like, I don't ask it in so many words, but I basically imply like, how involved do you want us to be in your dining experience? You know what I mean? I would say 80% of the time, I somehow end up sitting at the dinner table telling stories, which I absolutely love, absolutely love. I love to entertain, not in my house. I love the whole experience, but you do have to be careful for the progressive dinner that we do for this amazing, amazing family. They've been my regulars way before the catering started. It's very formal. We hire the servers and they bring me out and a little speech is given at the end. And I know like, this is not a dinner where they're looking for entertainment. They're older. They're looking to like, I don't know, have this like ritzy experience, and it's beautiful.
That also sounds a bit like a lot of Top Chef challenges. Like that's how I'm picturing it is like when you Top Chef, you'll come out, the servers are setting the food in front of the table full of people and you're describing what you made and why you made it. And then you're back in the kitchen
and then
they talk about
right
it
off.
And then they judge you and decide if you have to pack your knives and go. Yeah.
I would say that's very similar. And then you have those meals. We have these two friends up in Maine right now, Michael and Crosby, and they have 2 or 3 friends over and we cook dinner for them. And they stand in the kitchen. They never sit. They watch us cook. We talk like we're like old girlfriends. We actually go out to dinner with them now. Like they're actually our friends because of like how wonderful this experience is. But it's a completely different vibe. And people are always like, do you mind? No, I love every second of this. Like I'm having so much fun. We had one woman, I can't remember the actual event, but she wanted sort of an interactive component to her meal. So I said, I'll roll out the pasta right in front of everybody. Like, please come in. And I just make sure that it's something that is feasible to do. But all of these things, that's how personalized we try to make these events. And I think that's important.
How much are you doing in general? I know it probably depends on the actual event, but how much are you doing there on site, like in their kitchen versus like ahead of time?
Mm-hmm. So when we lived in my shitty little kitchen apartment, we had no space to prep. So we were actually doing 99% of the prep at people's homes. And that, due to circumstance, had to work. But, we were having to get there 3 hours early, 4 hours early, and then we were in people's spaces. And it wasn't the most professional thing, but literally no other option. No other option. And now we probably do 85% at home. And then we get to the event an hour before guests arrive because you spend 30 minutes talking, meeting, learning where things are. And then you're like, shit, I got to start cooking. Like, wow.
Yeah.
So it's definitely shifted quite a bit, but we do the bulk of the work at home and then arrive. It's just cleaner. It's much easier.
How much do you ever run into them just not having something that you would assume that they would have? Like, we don't have pans or, I don't know if there's any, So
much more often than you would ever realize.
Right. No,
We always have a pot or pan in the trunk of my car because this has come. But David and I actually had an event for my reoccurring client, like people I private chef for, but they were doing it in the library of their building, which has a kitchen, but not with anything in it. And David showed up. I was already so in the thick of things and it was a lot of food. There were no spoons to taste any of the food with.
Oh, no.
David was like, what have you been doing? I was like, I don't know. He was so upset. I was like, babe, we just got to go with the flow. I was like, just keep going. I was like, keep working with it. But for the most part, like I can go into any kitchen and be pretty confident I can find whatever I need.
How hard is it to, like, I would imagine every oven is different. Like, I would imagine some of that's challenging, just not burning stuff or knowing how to time everything.
We have set off so many fire alarms. We have set off so many fire alarms. We have set off fire alarms. We have had to completely reconstruct the menu because X, Y, and Z. But I think Top Chef really geared me towards that. It does not faze me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big...
David's definitely a little bit more phased, but I'm like, we're already here. Like, we can't just run. So we have to figure it out now. And it's difficult, but it's like, that's the joy of it. It's not rocket science. Like, you make it work.
Yeah, but are there ever times where, I don't know, you just can't serve something that you had planned to serve? Like, do you have to roll with that?
No. Thank God that has never happened. I have had dishes where I've had to change my vocabulary because they didn't turn into what I wanted them to be.
Right.
But still were very good in this new form that nobody expected. But like...
That also feels like a Top Chef skill of trying to sell. Yep. No, I meant to do that. It's deconstructed. It's, you have
to be adaptable.
Yeah. So.
That's the thing. And I am not at all, like almost to a fault, not an A-type personality. Like we just found that out trying to wallpaper my bathroom. It looked like shit, but I was like, it's up. Woo! But you just have to kind of go with the flow. And I think it takes a different kind of person to be like, well, that wasn't it, but like, we're fine.
How many times has this happened to you?
I just want to listen to a podcast. I can't choose from all these complicated structures and setups.
You want to listen, not think. That's why there's Hobo Radio. You'll feel like the smartest guy in the room in a room by yourself.
This doesn't take any intellectual thinking at all. Thanks, Hobo Radio.
Hobo Radio, a weekly podcast on the Peak Sloth Podcast Network. All right, so what we've covered, so they email you, a lot of exclamation points. That's important. You've worked out a menu. They kind of decide how fancy they want it, how formal, all of that. Are there other parts? Are there other things to lock down? The number of people. We talked about the number of people, but yeah, are there other
number of people?
Yeah. What else do they need to?
And that's really it. Like, and I think some people are startled by the lack of questions I have. But again, I got it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I always say that I'm like, I sense the nerves. Don't you worry. I'm always going to be probably 15 minutes late from the time I tell you that I'm going to be there. Like, this is all figured out. Don't even get stressed about this. And then it comes to the actual party. And because you've got these two strangers in a kitchen, David and I, it turns out to be like a big focal point. Like people want to hang out and do things. And again, we absolutely love that. We are trained to cook and talk at the same time. So there's always great rapport. And then if we do cocktails and hors d'oeuvres, that's great. If we don't, that's fine. People ask about wine pairings. I don't drink anymore, but like when I did drink, I drank really shitty Sauvignon Blanc, and people don't want to drink that at their party. So I'm like, drink whatever you want. And just know, after the first glass of wine, people are not going to be talking about the nuances of the second bottle. Like, do whatever you want.
I would also say if most of your party is talking about the nuances of a second bottle of wine, that's not a good party. There should be other.
That's the formal party where I'm we are in over our head, but like, look at us trying to do it.
Yeah, by the second bottle of wine, it should all be interpersonal drama. And oh my God, have you heard about this thing?
Tell me your tea.
Yeah. That's where you should be at that point of the party.
And I also always joke that when we're at these parties that David and I are kind of like Switzerland, like we're the neutral part. So people will come to us and they'll just be like, they'll need a break. And I'm like, let me make you a little something off the cuff just to get some food in you and we can get back to this party. But I totally get that you're overwhelmed. Like, don't you worry. I got you.
No, that's a really interesting point that I hadn't thought. But yeah, because so you're entering into someone's home, you're entering into this situation where there is all these relationships and everything that they have, that yeah, you're kind of in this position to by default be involved in, I don't know, whatever's happening, the larger
Everything.
drama of the party or like any kind of conflict. Yeah, that's a very strange thing where it's you're both removed, but you're in someone's kitchen, so like
we are there, and we're there. So we always experience that. And by the time the guests sit down, like just saying that we're doing more formal sit down dinner, we do 4 courses. So we do something light for the first course, whether that be a crudo, a sashimi, a salad. And then we go into a hand rolled pasta that's where I pick up tips from what the host is saying, like what they want to eat. Then we go into a protein, which is typically like a meat or a fish with vegetables, because you've just eaten pasta, so you don't really need more carbs to soak it down. And then dessert, which I am not a baker, but I do really love making plated desserts. So I enjoy that component too. And dinner typically takes 2 hours. We're there for about 4. The last hour, we're normally just shooting the shit with people and just having fun. But it's a really good time. And I think the thing about hiring somebody to cater these dinners is like so much stress is gone. Like you come into that kitchen and it is spotless. Like we have cleaned, we have fixed it all for you. We've probably, if you had a screw loose, it's probably tight again because we got in there.
I mean, honestly, and again, we started this by talking about how you and I are not big on throwing parties. The idea of someone cleaning up in and of itself is such a great, like, that's half of the after party anxiety that I have is all the cleanup. So,
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. And when I threw that ill-fated party in August, there's probably still shit around the house from it. Like there's just so much pressure to make sure your house doesn't look like a disaster because you still have people in it. And, how are you going to sit down and enjoy the food when you also need to serve the food if you're not doing it in like the capacity of like buffet style? Right. And I know it's buffet. I just say buffet.
Like Phoebe from Friends.
Yeah, like Phoebe Buffet. So that's really one of like the joys of it, I would say.
Have you ever had any really bizarre requests or anything?
No, but I've had some very weird parties.
Oh, please. What do we got?
Weird parties.
What do you got?
We had a party. In the first like 15 minutes of getting there, I go to reach something and all of these like weed roaches come out. And then I start looking around the house and there's just like a lot of bongs. And I'm like, that's cool. Like whatever. We had to stop between the second and third course because they were rolling joints. And then everybody got so high that I was like, hello, hello. We've had people drink too much at the beginning and just like, what do you call it? Boot and rally.
Oh, yeah.
We've had that. We've had people fight in the middle of party, not like physically fight, but like, pretty loud
shouting.
Verbal fights.
Yeah.
We have seen it all.
Also, I feel like that first party, you don't need you and David for the getting super high party. Just have.
You could order Domino's.
I was gonna say Taco Bell. You just order like 100 tacos from Taco Bell, and you're good. Yeah, you don't.
That one. Honestly, David was like, Stephanie, you don't care. Like, I don't care if you smoke, like at all.
Yeah,
not a concern. But these people came back on Mars.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is like, yeah, it's not a judgment of the activity, but it's just like, as someone who's putting effort into food, it does not matter. Like they're just, got munchies, just want to eat snacks at that point. Yeah.
Oh, Lord have mercy. I was like, this one stinks. We had one event where we didn't have cars, so we had to order an Uber to come pick us up. And we got into the Uber and the guy was normal for about 20 seconds. And then he started talking about the Illuminati and we were like 30 minutes away from the house and he was getting really passionate about it. And I got really nervous because I'm a nervous Nelly to begin with. We've had sort of all of them. And they just make great stories. Like, we also leave these events really not judging anybody unless you were a dick. Like, then we have some issues. But it's your time.
Do you get like, are there people, do you ever get micromanaging? Like, are there people standing in the kitchen watching?
We do a little bit, but I have a look that that scares, and people will stop.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I cannot be micromanaged.
Yeah.
It is not a good look.
Well, it's also funny to hire someone like you.
And then be like, do you really want to do that with that salt?
Yeah.
It's a look, and David will get it from me every once in a while, and like, it stops traffic. It's not a mean look. It's not a condescending look. It's something internal where I'm just like, I can't.
Yeah. No, that's good. I think that's a good one to have in the arsenal. That probably, I'm sure, comes in handy. Yeah.
But for the most part, I mean, we love everybody we cook for. And I hand out my phone number to guests, to whomever. And I'm like, you need anything, you give me a call. You need advice, you need cooking tips, you need whatever. Like, these people become friends and family. Like, that's probably the coolest part of my job, is that I have a very small, very close-knit group of friends. And then I have all of these people who have paid me to come into their house, that I take our relationship further, because now we've got a whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like that's kind of the difference of, obviously, I'm sure if you wanted to, you could open a restaurant and you could be in the kitchen and you could be removed, and just, people would know that it was your restaurant, but you come out and say hi, but that's it. But I feel like the difference, the reason that you're going to do catering for parties is there's a social component to it. There's you want to get involved. You want to be talking to people and seeing them.
Absolutely. I worked at Barbara Lynch's demonstration kitchen, Stir, for 2 years, I want to say. And I got so much pleasure from being able to look everybody in the eye that I set a plate in front of. And after that job, I was kind of screwed, because, you don't know who's at table 43. You don't know if they've enjoyed themselves, if they haven't. It was too impersonal. And my thing about food is, like, I'm cooking from the bottom of my heart. I want to make sure that you're having fun, that we can, like, that everybody's having fun. So that's why I do what I do, because that's the joy that I get from it.
All right. Is there anything else that we haven't covered that we should cover about catering?
No, I feel good about this, but anybody that has questions, leave us a note and we will follow up.
Exclamation points. A lot of exclamation points.
If you don't leave them, I'm going to think you're not a nice person and I just won't respond, and you'll think poorly of me.
Well, and then the last thing, though, that we need to cover is, has there been any injuries while catering?
No.
Wow.
But I do have an incredible horror story.
There we go. Because we got to end this with a... Yep.
I'm going to preface it with, it was the wildest... this story is unbelievable what happened. So we're at these people's houses. It's in we should not necessarily have been there, because it was like in May of 2020. But whatever. You got to live. We're masked. We're fine. So we get to these people's house. They're having an outdoor party. Before, we had to rent a zip car to get there. Again, we were living in Boston. We don't have a car. So I rent the zip car. We go to the place. The skies look like they're about to open up. It looks scary out there. It's gray. It's black. I'm like, oh my God. Car's not back. The skies open up and just shit water on David and I. Like, unbelievably, like, we're soaked. Finally, these two gentlemen drop off the zip car. They're so apologetic. I'm like, it's fine. This was a time where I really didn't like to drive, but I was like, when you rent a zip car, you're the insured one, not like your passenger. You know what I mean? So David, for all intents and purposes, shouldn't have been driving. So we get about 4 blocks down the street and it is sheet raining. I take a right onto Mass Ave, as you can imagine, is the busiest street in the entire world. And I'm like, I can't do it. I just get out of the car. And he's like, what the heck are you doing? I'm like, you have to drive. So at this point, we had been to several different grocery stores like Eataly, Whole Foods, Stop and Shop to try and find this one cut of meat. Nobody has it. I finally call another Whole Foods in Newton and I'm like, do you have top sirloin? They're like, we do. Now this is COVID. So now it's still dumping rain and we are waiting outside because there's a line because you can allow like 6 people in the store at one time. And I'm like, this is not going well. So we have to buy t-shirts at Whole Foods because we look like a wet t-shirt contest. We are so wet. We're like, this is bad. We get to the house immediately. We set off the fire alarm. It not only sets off the fire alarm downstairs, they're all connected. So it goes up to the 4th floor. Okay. So now all the fire alarms are going off and we finally get them off. And I'm like, okay. Next thing we know, I'm sitting by the stove cooking and I can see they're having dinner out on their patio. I can see that the father is running in with the little girl, we'll call her May, under his arm screaming, May, just hold it, May. They're potty training her. She's 2. She's about to have an accident. And he is like, I don't even know how to describe how he's holding her. But in the process of getting her in the house and into the bathroom, he hit the table. There was a votive candle that knocked over and lit all the cocktail napkins on fire. And I look at David, I'm like, do you smell something? And he's like, yeah, I do. And I look outside and the table's on fire. And I'm like, oh my God. So now I'm in a panic because the table's on fire. We put the fire out. We put a nice vase over the burn marks and we're like, whatever, let's move on. The guests arrive and we're just watching everything. And we're like, okay, this is going cool. The rain has stopped. Like everything's going fine. And we see all of the guests stand up very slowly and look around. And I'm like, what's going on out there? There is a elephant-sized coyote in the backyard.
Oh my God.
Okay. So they shoo the coyote away. Everything's looking good. Finally, I'm like, can we all sit down for dinner? Because this has kind of been an experience and your girl's patience is wearing thin. So a very thin man lifts his chair to pull it in. His chair goes through the patio floor.
What? Wow.
Just goes through it.
Wow.
Hole in the floor. He moves. We're fine again. By the second course, it starts raining again. Everybody is like many gin and tonics deep. They try to lift the picnic table over their heads to get it into the patio. That was a whole fiasco in itself. And I think those were the hits of what happened that night. That was the coyote, the table on fire, the hole in the floor.
I feel like that was the universe saying you should not be having a party right now.
That should have been our key.
Yeah.
I was like, and I follow them on Instagram and every time she posts a picture, I'm like, I hope they're doing well.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like I hope that all of it came together for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, the coyote, the fire, and it was a fire.
Yeah.
It was a fire. Like that shit went up.
And you had already had a Boy Who Cried Wolf. You had already set off fire alarms. So they probably, even if the alarms went off, they're not going to take it seriously.
We're all just looking at each other and David and I, and this was one of those moments where, like your stomach sinks to your toes and you're just like, do I run? Like I could run right now. I could just leave everything and be like, best o' luck. We are gone. But that was the wildest. And it wasn't a person. It was just like a freak.
Just everything.
Thing that happened. Yeah. It was wild.
Yeah. No, that was good. That's a good. Yeah.
So since David and I got through that, we can do just about anything.
Yeah. No, you're stronger after.
We're stronger because of it.
No, that's good. I like that. All right. Well, no, this is great. I feel like I learned a lot about throwing parties. I'm still not going to throw one, but I feel like I learned a lot.
Neither am I.
Yeah.
But we'll find someone to host one and we'll be like guest facing, I think that's where we could start.
Yeah, I think if the podcast takes off, you already said that a lot of times you're asked to come out. I'll sit across from you and we can just do a show at a dinner. I'm down for that. Yeah. Not be awkward for everyone.
If anybody wants to come to that too, just let us know. I'll be out in LA ASAP.
Yeah, no, that's anytime. Hit us up. A lot of exclamation points.
So many. Like, don't think you're being over. Never enough.
All right. No, this is great. So, Stephanie, we've been asking people at the end of the show to write reviews, like to give us 5-star reviews, and to share meals with us that they've recently had and enjoyed. And they've been doing that.
Yes. Thank you, my little lovers. That makes us so happy. And, I think I've got the point across. I eat, sleep, and breathe food. So, like, something brings me so much joy when people talk about what they want to eat, what they do eat, what their car snacks are. So, yeah, super appreciated. We read every single one.
All right. But so I want to share this one with you. This is from Funkadillo.
Yes.
And Funkadillo said, my cousin spent weeks talking up how amazing his deep fried Thanksgiving turkey was going to turn out. He somehow put the thermometer in the meat, not the oil. So the oil never got up to the necessary temp. After going through a ton of propane, he finally checked it, and the bird was so blackened, it looked like it was straight out of a cartoon. That was almost 20 years ago, and we still talk about it.
One of my favorite things around Thanksgiving, Funkadillo, is when people post videos of their fathers or grandfathers trying to fry a turkey.
Yeah.
Like,
well, have you seen the ones too? There's those terrifying ones where it's like the deep fried turkey that's frozen and they shoot up in the air like a cannon.
You cannot. No, I have not, but you cannot do that.
Yeah.
You cannot do that.
Because they shoot up in the air like a cannon. Like you will have a flying.
With hot oil.
Yeah, it's not good. People, no. The deep frying has gone badly for people. I will say, in defense of Funkadillo's cousin, which is a sentence I didn't know I would get to say, and I'm so happy that I did.
I love it.
I kind of am sympathetic towards, I understand for a Thanksgiving turkey why you would put the thermometer into the turkey, because that is a thing for a Thanksgiving turkey of checking the internal temperature. So I'll give them a little bit of grace in the thought process. I can see how they got there.
Funkadillo, the only one that's giving your cousin grace right now is Joel. I'm trying,
it's Thanksgiving.
Bless his soul.
Yeah, Thanksgiving's hard, holidays are hard. So I'm trying.
I can't wait for November when we can talk about Thanksgiving.
I feel like that's going to be a big episode on the show. I'm excited. I'm always happy to talk about Thanksgiving. So thank you, Funkadillo. And
thank you, Funkadillo.
And if you would like us to talk about a meal that you've had on an upcoming episode, then write us a review and leave that as the review. 5 stars. Obviously 5 stars. You give us a 3-star review, I'm not reading your meal. So
no, and then I'm going to have to talk about it in therapy.
Yep. Yeah.
We don't need that.
Nope.
So if you're confused, we probably are too, but together we can figure it out.
Stephanie Knows Some Shit is hosted by Stephanie Cmar and me, Joel Murphy, and produced by me. If you enjoyed the show, give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, and instead of a review, tell us about a meal that you ate or made recently. We'd love to read about it.
Hey, this is Chris.
And this is Joe from the Curioso Podcast.
And we give our stamp of Curioso approval to the podcast that you're listening to right now.